All right, hey everyone. Sorry I'm running a little bit behind today. Technical problems, that's all I can say, but you know, it's not your problem, it's my problem. I have to fix it. Anyway, hey, thanks for joining me for my stream. This is Mark P. Markets, Mark Principato, and we're going to be running here another Greenbridge Investing market analysis. As you know, I'm going to continue with my new format. People seem to like it very much. I'm just going to analyze Bitcoin basically as quickly as I can, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the time on your questions. So if you can share your question in the chat, I see a lot of questions in there now, that's great. So if you have an altcoin or a stock you'd like to see, please share it in the chat. Also, if it's an altcoin specifically, please make sure to put USD or USDT after your symbol so that I get the symbol right. Okay, so with that being said, let's get started. This is for educational purposes only. For investment advice, please consult a licensed investment advisor. Okay, so before I get into Bitcoin, very quickly, I have to run through the economic calendar because it's just a good idea. All right, so I'm looking for the week and I'm only interested in important events, okay, if there are any. So let's just see what we have here. Tomorrow, which is the 16th, actually no, tonight we have Australia. 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Royal Bank of Australia Governor Lowe speech. All right, not that important, okay? I'm looking for like the really important reports here. On the 16th, for the British pound, claimant count change, okay, who cares? ILO unemployment rate, that's not important either. On the 16th also for Euro, we have GDP, year over year, quarter over quarter. Those are not usually big numbers. On the 16th also, we have retail sales for the US, and let's see, what else? On the 17th, consumer price index for the pound, no big deal. On the 17th, Bank of Canada consumer price index, okay, no one cares. We have on the 19th, ECB President Lagarde speech, and also for Canada, retail sales. On the 21st, we have Chinese interest rate decision. All right, so there are no major reports. I'm looking for NFP, FOMC meetings, that type of thing, particularly from the US, because those news reports can move markets in a dramatic way, and it's important so that you can mitigate risk. You need to understand when these things are coming out. You can't trade them, but you want to know what's coming out ahead because the market can behave in a certain way, and you want to be prepared for that. Now, the previous week we had the CPI report, and since then the market's been unsettled, okay? And we're starting to see some strange behaviors after that CPI report. For years, no one cared about the CPI report. It never had really an effect. So it just goes to show that something like that, unexpectedly, can change the perception of the general marketplace. And that's important to understand. Now, I don't care about what the report said. I don't care what people's opinions are. It made a change on the chart, okay? And that change on the chart is meaningful. We cannot predict these things. So the market reacts, the market processes the information, and then we can adjust to the new information, all right? So let's here begin with Bitcoin and talk about what's going on in the situation. In fact, let me pull up my my correct chart here with all of my information on it. Hold on, there it is. Okay, so I wrote an article on TradingView. By the way, I think I have the TradingView problem fixed, and hopefully I can start getting back on there. So for people that like to watch me on there, again, I apologize for not being on there, but I think I have the streaming situation fixed, and I'm going to try to test it out next week. Anyway, okay, so first things first, Bitcoin. I like to use, right, besides charts, I like to go on YouTube and I like to look at the titles of these ridiculous videos that people keep producing. Most of these gurus, like even though some of these people may be somewhat highly respected, I guess, it's just funny to me. But I like to look at the titles because the titles are very telling. And often it's a good idea to think in opposite of those titles. And I saw one that said Bitcoin is going parabolic. Okay, I think that was the word that was used. Parabolic over the next week or going into December or something like that, and blah, 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 and you're going to miss it now. I saw that, I'm like, Bitcoin's probably at the top. Okay, so let's talk about that situation here. What's going on? First of all, I wrote an article on TradingView yesterday talking about the consolidation and talking about one important observation that you really need to keep an eye on, and that is this. okay? The weekly chart, this, because there's a pin bar it's not in play. This is not the ideal pin bar because the open to the close got a little bigger, okay, since I wrote that and over the previous few days, this candle right here. But the low of the candle hasn't changed, all right? The low is still basically that 62K level. If that level is taken out after this tail, and we're seeing an inside bar right now, again, we have the whole week for this thing to mature, but if that low is taken out, that's a sell signal, okay? Not only is that a sell signal, because sell signals can appear anywhere. It doesn't matter really that it's a sell signal. What makes it important is it's a sell signal in this location. That's what matters. That's called context. And this location happens to be near the old high of 64K, right? The original high that dates all the way back to April or whatever. And now we have this double top or failed high situation, and price is starting to get hesitant there. That is what is concerning for longs. So if the sell signal develops now, then we have a higher probability that we really pull back, okay? Because the weekly chart carries a lot of weight. So really pull back means 57K is the next support. That's what it means. It doesn't mean it's going to zero. I know we have a lot of people that want this thing to go back to 30K. I understand, but no one can predict anything like that, okay? What we can see, though, over the short term is basically something like this, a sell signal at a high probability location of where this type of signal is likely to develop. And if it develops and confirms, then we have an idea of where the next support is. So that's where I would be projecting price to go, right? That's 57K. Now, if 57K is cleared, meaning we don't get any type of buy signal there, because that's the area, that's the high probability location where I'm anticipating a buy signal to develop. And I put a box there on the chart. You can see that box, the blue box. Hold on there. There you go. This blue box here. That's where I'd be anticipating some sort of buy signal, possibly for a swing trade. And that would be basically a repeat of this type of situation back here. If Bitcoin does such a thing, it's just range bound. Okay, range bound, it means nothing. It's range bound and it's coming off of a higher low, which would actually be a pretty bullish outcome if it produced a buy signal in this area. There's attractive reward risk there. There's a lot of good things here for a swing trade in this area. So that's the area where I want to be prepared. I don't care what people are saying and what they're predicting, and Bitcoin's going to be at 2 million by next week and all this other nonsense that's out there. I know everyone that comes here to watch me, I know you're all over that stuff. So I don't have to sit here and lecture you on why that stuff is bad for you. But a lot of people still consume it, you know, like sugar. Anyway, this is the location. We want to be prepared for this. And there's no guarantee that price will hold there, but that's where the probability points to the bullish reversal. A bullish reversal, which would be a higher low, a broad higher low, in a broad bullish structure, okay? So I mentioned in the description of this video that I was going to mention a couple of steps. Well, the first step, when I do this type of analysis, I don't explicitly describe it, you know, during these things, but I just wanted to mention it here. I'm looking for a broader trend. And clearly, when I zoom out on this bigger picture, this is not a bearish trend, okay? It's bullish, which means supports are likely to hold. So I want to know the support levels, and then I want to anticipate some type of behavior there. So that's what I'm looking at here. This is a high probability area. Now, if it is broken, which is a possibility, if it's broken, meaning price goes below it and closes below it in a meaningful way, then 51K is the next support, okay? It's that simple. Now, if Bitcoin wants to find a support somewhere before it gets there, that's also possible. I would have to make that adjustment. I don't like Bitcoin in this area. I don't like it. That's why I'm not interested in any buy signals up in here. We had a buy signal the other day. I completely ignored this because we're at a resistance. Okay, and I know that the probability is lower. I know that it can break out, it can go through. I know anything can happen, but I am not willing to take that chance. It's that simple. Okay, so we'll see if we get on one of these other prices. And that's it. That's really all I can say about this thing. Looking for supports, and right now it would be 57K, and looking for a buy signal there for another higher low, which actually would become a double bottom along with this low here. That would be a double bottom formation. And I'd be looking for the next swing trade long for a test of the high, at least a test of the high. All right, if it doesn't break out, okay, that becomes a new piece of information. But that's what I'm looking for. Now, a couple of warnings that I have to give you is in this type of situation, you have a lot of people that are obsessed with smaller time frames. So when they see this lower high, they're going to be calling a bear market. They're going to be calling Bitcoin's going to 20K now. You're going to see a lot of over-exaggerated claims. Please ignore those, because just because there's this little mini lower high inside of a consolidation, it doesn't mean anything. This is not a trend, okay? On a small time frame, sure. If you're on a 5-minute chart and you're putting on day trades, sure, that's a different story. But I'm not talking about that. We're talking about swing trades, and we're talking about risk on the magnitude of this time frame. You cannot mix time frames when you're talking about risk. You have to keep it the same. Okay. So that's what I have to say about Bitcoin, right? And Bitcoin is going to lead to a lot of these altcoins being affected. Now, one other thing I just want to mention before I move on to your questions is if price gets to 57K, if price gets here, keep something in mind. You're going to hear a lot of really bearish talk because they're going to be saying, Bitcoin, the party's over, blah, 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 okay? Beware of that over-exaggerated hype and overreactive nature of things. That's the way the crowd is, okay? You need to be a contrarian. So if it gets here, that's a bullish thing, but it needs to prove itself. That's what people miss, okay? But the location and everything here, the context says bullish, and I'm willing to wait for that. All right, so that's the Bitcoin situation. We'll see how that unfolds as the week goes on here. Now, Travel had a good question in the free chat. I just want to address it now as my first question because we're talking about Bitcoin. It was about Bitcoin. His question was, oh, hey, G-Manel, 200 coins. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Trade in a Zen state of mind. Oh, cool. Largely part to the wisdom. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much, G-Man. I always appreciate your generous donation of TradingView coins. I mean, that's very nice of you. Thank you. You don't have to do that. But like I said, I am planning to get back onto TradingView, and I think I've solved the problem. So Travel had asked a question about, he saw some kind of video or something about people being afraid to get into a market because the market just never pulls back. And, so how do you deal with something like that? And it's a good question, because when you're dealing with a market like this, or like the stock market or something else, which doesn't pull back, all right, and he mentioned something about the Fed stimulus, which I think is a big factor in all of this money floating around. It's hard to, so what do you do? Like, how do you get involved? Do you just wait and miss out of the whole thing? Well, look, and I've mentioned this before, if you don't like this idea of buying highs and all that, that's understandable. I don't like to buy highs. But then, you're missing the move. And then maybe you never get in and the thing keeps going and going. Markets cycle. So you have to first define what your objective is. And the easiest way to deal with something like this is to play the inventory method or position trade. Now, here's what things get in the way with that. Inventory meaning you're going to invest and you're going to basically split everything up into batches, right? You're going to have a full amount that you're going to buy at some point, which may be $5,000 or $10,000. That's your full amount that you want to invest in, but you're not going to put it all at one price. You're going to break it up into some amount of batches, right? So if it's $10,000, you can do $1,000 a month for 10 months. Now, that's going to give you an average price. Here's where people have a problem with. So let's say month one, or month two, you bought some and it's just kind of fluctuating around and it goes higher and you're like, man, I could have put in all $10,000 and I would have made more money. Well, that's greed. So if you're not happy with making a little bit of money and participating at high risk prices, then you shouldn't be in this game at all, because this is about reward risk, okay? You want to take the full amount of risk at these levels? If it works out, you'll get paid better. But if it doesn't work, which is what probability points to, you're going to suffer. All right, because you're going to be at the mercy of the market. By the way, that's how most people invest. So when things look like a sure thing, and Bitcoin's pretty much, even when it starts to look ugly, they just have faith, right? They have blind faith. They hop in because everyone is saying it's a long. They saw a billboard outside of their window across the street, buy Bitcoin. So they mindlessly follow, I'm going to buy Bitcoin. It must be a good time, right? And it may work out for a few months because there's money coming in and blah, 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 blah. But when the cycle turns, and it will, because nothing goes like this forever, right? I mean, I showed you the weekly chart. If I show you real quick, just on that note, I'm not going to analyze this thing because you guys don't want to see it. But just to show you real quick, the NASDAQ, what's going on here? Okay, hold on. Why is my chart acting like that? Hold on a second. Okay, what is going on here? Stop moving. Okay, hold on. It's acting funny. Wait a minute. All right, hold on a second. Let's go to the SPY USD. And let's go back to the 1440. All right, why is my, this is strange. I've never seen this before. Okay, hold on a second. Maybe I have to refresh this. What? Hold on. It's like my space bar is all right, maybe I need to refresh this thing. All right, hold on a second here. Let me just fix this. Sorry about that. No. All right. Man, this computer's driving me crazy today. All right, so sorry about that interruption. So the SPX, right? This is the point that I wanted to make. When we look at this thing, and you're looking at the weekly chart, I mean, this is the kind of market that we have been observing. I mean, look at this, right? This is years worth, ever since the stimulus at the bottom of 2020. So what this does is it creates this sense of everything is okay, everything is safe. You can have hope because the market always comes back. That's what goes on in our mind, and we can expect that to continue. And it might continue if the Fed, as long as the Fed keeps pumping money and printing money and doing all the irresponsible things that they're doing. But at some point, this is going to stop because that's what markets do. And it may take a few more weeks. I mean, I can tell you 20 years ago, I remember at the peak of the dot-com era, there was about a year, all right, between when it actually peaked. And the market got wild in that year, but no one expected everything to pull back the way it pulled back over the coming year because everyone was so used to a few years of, hey, these things always come back, right? So you have to be willing to take that risk. And if you're not willing to take the risk, then, you have to, that's what you're dealing with. Does that make sense? I know I spent a lot of time on that, but that's an important thing. So, you want to know how to play the game, forget charts, just have an amount that you want to invest, skew it smaller at the highs because we are at extremely vulnerable highs, okay? Skew it smaller, and when we get to some sort of cycle low, then, skew it a little larger until your full investment is in the market. If you believe in these things over the long term. And I think Bitcoin is a long-term play. I think it has some valid use case and all that other stuff, but it's still a high-risk instrument, and it's still possible, even though it seems unlikely right now, it's still possible to see Bitcoin go back to 40K, okay, or 30K. It's possible. And you have to be prepared for that type of risk. And if you don't like the idea, you shouldn't be in it. All right, that's it. Okay, so that's the answer to that. Let me jump over to the other questions here. Man, I talk too much. Okay. Oh yeah, and there was another question too in the chat about training, because someone wanted to ask if I had any type of training resources. I don't have anything to talk about at the moment, but you guys just stay tuned, okay? And I will have something to talk about soon. All right, anyway. All right, so Elijah's, hey, no problem. Would be awesome if you could do analysis on VAL3. Sure, let's take a look. All right, VAL3, Volkswagen. What's the story here with this thing? So first things first, I see, let's do this in steps, right? So step one is perspective, or basically the broader structure. And what do I see? We see a general bullish trend, all right? I see one gigantic higher low here. I see like basically one large bullish structure, and more recently, we'll say midterm has been sort of a pullback or some sort of corrective movement, and short term is basically this little consolidation inside of here, right? So we can categorize this thing into basically three structures. Now, we do that so that when you have to compare them to each other, it gives you a better sense of what you're looking at. So for example, we know the broader structure is bullish. We know the short-term structure is a consolidation. That's part of a corrective move of the broader bullish move. So what does that mean? We're looking for longs, okay? You have a support over here in this area. So you have all that going for you as far as longs. At least you're not at some sort of minor resistance. You're coming off of a minor support. Now, what's the low here? 182.98, so basically 183, and this thing is at 188 right now. So just judging by the price action off of that level, you see today's Monday, so I guess Friday, the large candle is Friday's candle. All right, let me just make that a little bigger. So you sort of be chasing this thing now, and today's candle is a little indecisive. I mean, you have this doji. So what do you do here? Well, this is definitely a location that's more attractive for longs, right? Based on the context of that bigger picture. But what is the risk? So 183.74, you can round that to 183. Your risk is defined by this level right here. So if you buy this now, you're risking about $5 if it pulls back, all right? And as you can see, the stock market, this is obviously a German, this is on the German stock market, but the world moves together. So if S&P has a really negative day, this will probably feel it, okay? So just something to keep in mind. What you want to see here is if you can get maybe more of a confirmation in the form of an inside bar or something over the next few days, something like that. Maybe you get that. But just keep in mind that the broader market is in a vulnerable location. In a situation like this, I mean, you can look at the DAX. All right, let's just take a quick look at the DAX for timing purposes, because the DAX would be like an appropriate, perspective, right? It's an appropriate index for something. I mean, look at this thing, right? This is the DAX. I mean, the DAX is on its highs. It's pushing new highs, even though the S&P is not. Usually these markets typically follow each other more. I mean, look at this. So if the DAX is doing this and Volkswagen is sitting on a support, that's actually not a very good sign. That's a sign of relative weakness, because what happens when the DAX pulls back? And the DAX looks like it has a long way to pull back too. And that's just, even that more dramatic pullback that I'm describing here, like if it retests this support, that's actually just a range low. That's not even a dramatic pullback. That's just a normal, healthy, hey, we're in a range type of pullback, right? So Volkswagen is relatively weak in that sense. This is where a lot of fake gurus, they go wrong, because they don't do relative strength analysis. They just look at their one chart. Look, the RSI is doing this, so I think it's a bomb. Just buy it and hope, right? So this situation here says vulnerability. I see this a lot. I see this a lot with altcoins too. That's why I think the risk is so high. People don't realize this. So you might want to wait on Volkswagen, VAL3, until that DAX is in a more, I mean, let it pull back a bit and then see how this thing behaves. If this thing does not break the support on a DAX pullback, then you probably have yourself a good swing trade choice on your hands, if that's what you're thinking of. I mean, if you're thinking of investing, that's a little different story. There's never a bad level for investing, especially since you're fooling around near supports. But just keep an eye, like I said, if the DAX breaks, the DAX just pulls back, this thing can break that support. All right, and then you're looking at what, 158 area, right? You're looking at like this support over here, something like that. Right, so why pay higher prices, or why take a position that's larger at a higher price when there's a good likelihood that you can get it cheaper, right? So that's what I was saying before when I was talking about that Bitcoin situation. You can start small and plan to put on more, even if it's going your way, right? Even if it's not pulling back, it breaks out, or you just don't even look at a chart. You just do time of the month, first of the month. Okay, I'm going to put in my $500 today. I don't care what the price is, just buying it because that's my plan. Okay, and that's more of an inventory idea. So I don't know what game you want to play with this, but that's why it's so important to define your objective or your game before you get involved, so you have an idea of which way you should go, because managing risk is not the same for swing trades and position trades. You have to manage it. There are different ways to manage that risk, and it's very important to be aware of that. Okay, so that's Val 3. Hey, Virecker, please do analysis on SCUSDT. Okay, let's see. What is that? SCUSDT. Let's take a look. So this is Sia coin, all right, it's an altcoin. Now, a lot of altcoins look similar to this, right? So step one, bigger picture. Well, we see this bullish structure here, then it's corrected and it's been in this consolidation. So we could say midterm is basically a corrective structure, hasn't fully corrected the bullish structure, and short term we have this consolidation within that corrective move. There's a higher low over here, okay, which is a sign of strength, but then we have this range high, which is still lower than like this area up in here, okay? So this is a tough spot because this can go either way. I mean, theoretically, we have higher lows. So theoretically, it should break higher relative to the recent price action. But keep something in mind. With Bitcoin and Ethereum, they were on their highs, right? This thing was nowhere near its high. This thing made it as high as what? 04, basically 4.5 cents, something like that. That was this thing's high. So Bitcoin and Ethereum make their way to new highs, and this thing is nowhere near this. So sign of relative weakness, right? Keep that in mind. Now, a lot of these coins depend on hype and good marketing teams. That's how a lot of these coins get anywhere. If you notice, the popular coins from back in 2017, 2018, a lot of them are nowhere near their highs. Okay, garbage coins like XRP and garbage coins like IOTA, and there was one called Sentiment, and all these other garbage coins. A lot of them don't come back. You know why? Because they're just not popular. Doesn't matter how good they are in their technology and they're going to change the world and all their other nonsense. If they're not popular, they're not popular. So if that happens with these, then you're going to see the supports break. And what's concerning to me is, they build up this little structure and they should do one thing, but if they don't, you have to adjust. And that's really the name of the game, is adjusting. Not predicting, it's adjusting. And these are the levels you have to watch out for. So if we break this level here, what is that? 010, so basically 017, right? So basically almost 2 cents. And then if that's mid-range, so that could break pretty easily and it doesn't really mean a whole lot. But then you have this lower part of the range right here, which is basically just below 1.5 cents, right? 014. If it takes that out, then that establishes this formation here as a double top, right? That will be a double top if you have price pushing here, which means the party is over, okay, on coins like this. So just be careful. That's what you need to watch out for. I have very little faith in these altcoins, especially when there's like 8,000 of them out there. I was active during the .com era. There were thousands of NASDAQ stocks, and they were all going to be the next blah, 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 okay? And they all went to blah, blah, blah. Most of them are no longer even on the exchanges. So I believe that's going to happen with many of these. You just don't know which ones, right? There's no way to know. So use the levels to help you. If these levels take out, they should not be taken out. If money is going to stay in these things and money and capital is going to continue to flow into these, they should not take out those supports, okay? And I mean, you want to have some hope and try to hold on to this and give it a chance. Well, this would be it right here. I mean, after that, that's really the party's over. That's just what, 0097? That's just below 1 cent. So it takes that out. That's it. That's it with these things. I would step aside. I would leave them alone until we go back into the new alt season. We're in alt season, everyone. I'm a fake guru. Alt season. Yeah, I use jargon so I can sound like a professional too, even though I've never even worked in the industry. Okay. Anyway, so I'm just being sarcastic there. So you get the idea, right? As far as new trades, I wouldn't touch this. You're near the range high. And, you know, Bitcoin's in the process of trying to pull back a bit. I don't know how well this follows Bitcoin, but I can tell you one thing. This pattern over here in this area looks very similar to that Bitcoin and Ethereum situation when Bitcoin was at 30K. So if there is a big pullback, in a bigger pullbacks, if Bitcoin touches 57K or something, or 51K, I wouldn't be too surprised, unless there's a specific piece of news that's driving this thing. Okay, a lot of these things, you want to get rich with an altcoin? Here, there's 2 suggestions that I have. For one, invent your own altcoin, hire a good marketing company, and sell it all when it spikes, when the herd comes for your altcoin, and you sell it to them. That's one way to become rich. The other way is when these things go basically to zero. All right, when most of these go to zero, you're sitting there waiting at those lows while everyone else is banging out. Okay, so that's it with these things. All right, so I hope that answers your question. All right, let's move on here. So DOT, okay, I'm in it at an average of 50 USD. Should I take the loss or wait? Okay, let's take a look. DOT, DOT, USDT. Let's take a look. All right, so you're in it from 50 and this thing's at 45. All right, first of all, where is 50? Let's just see. Let's just put 50 on the chart here. That's about this area here. 50. That's 50? Is that right? I need to make that bigger because I can't see. Yeah, that's the $50 area right there. Okay, so it looks like you went for the breakout. Okay, I'm guessing you went for the breakout on that, or if you took, I mean, that may have been an Andrew trade. I don't know, because he likes to go for those breakouts. Here's the thing. First of all, there were plenty of warning signs, okay? When it does this kind of stuff to you, I mean, that's a lower high situation right there. Those are warning signs. I talk about those all the time. So the loss should have been taken by now. So to answer your question, though, and that is, should I take the loss or wait? All right, well, let's look at the levels. So, I mean, the general trend, the general structure that we can see here is bullish, right? So higher lows and higher highs. You're fooling around here at this support level, and it's trying to hold. So when you want to give it a chance, I'm guessing it's a swing trade. At the moment, this is not good price action, right? So just something to keep in mind. That's not good. So in this type of situation, perhaps one thing you can consider is lighten up a bit. Maybe take a partial loss, but not the full loss, and maybe give it a little more room, because this level right here, 39.81, that's where it should not go. If it goes here, then it's breaking the structure, all right? And it should not do that if it's going to maintain this bullish structure. All right, but like I said with these things are mostly driven by hype and nonsense. So when they start to break, you have to be quick to make adjustments, right? Now you know why I don't make any calls in these things, because then I got to sit there and I got to babysit this thing over here, and then I got to tell everyone when to get out of this thing, and it's not worth it. It's just not worth all the effort when I know the outcome is going to most likely be like this, because we missed, everyone wants to double and triple and quadruple their accounts, but look where we are, okay? We're not at the bottom. These are not bottoms. These are tops. I mean, look at that. That's your weekly on DOT. That's certainly not a bottom. It's got a long way to go even to get back into the midpoint of its range. So that's why I keep saying the magnitude of risk is extremely high at these levels. All right, and any buy signals that show up here are not very probable, in my opinion, because I think it's overdone. Like I said before, opportunities, good opportunities, are not advertised. No one goes out on YouTube and says, I got this great opportunity for you, because first of all, they're going to get in it themselves, and they want to make sure they're all in at good prices. But usually it's not obvious, right? That's the main reason why you don't see these videos at the bottom. At the bottom, you have people saying that, oh, it's going to get worse, and oh, it's horrible, and blah, blah, blah. That's what comes out at the bottom. And at the top, oh, everything's going to get better. Oh, Bitcoin's going to double and triple from here. Bitcoin is going to go parabolic. It's a fancy word. Click on my video title, please. Right? That's what you see in those situations. So use that information to your advantage. Think like a contrarian. All right, so that's DOT. I hope that answers your question. All right, Sean. Hey, Sean, good to see you. Elizabeth, took profit on most of my Ethereum. That's great. Should I be waiting for 4K to get back in? All right, let's take a look at Ethereum. I know Ethereum's been pulling back a bit. Look, everything's red. What a surprise. All right, so here's Ethereum, all right, on Bitfinex. And how high did this thing go? 48. What's the high there? 48.64. Okay, so never touched 5, and you've taken most of your profit. So Elizabeth, you are a strong hand. Okay. Now let's talk about the Ethereum structure. I mean, generally the bigger picture is bullish. We know that. The recent structure, there's nothing but higher lows, right? We got a higher low over here. It's struggling right now with this support at 45, and it's struggling to hold it. Now, if Bitcoin breaks, and I think 62 is the key level to watch for, you're probably going to see these supports break. So to answer your question, should I be waiting for 4K? Let's see. Let's put 4K on the chart here. Where is 4K? Right around here, right? That's a good level, because that's an old, look, it's an old resistance area from back here. I mean, let's look back a bit. Look what 4K overlaps with. Look at that. So yeah, Elizabeth, I would agree. That would be a very good price, and that would probably coincide with a Bitcoin at 51K. That's my guess, or somewhere in those mid to lower 50s. Right? I like to use Bitcoin as a gauge, because especially when it comes to these big ones, these first tier coins, you know, Bitcoin, Ethereum, they tend to follow each other as usual. And that's what I'd be looking for. So yeah, I would say that would be a good place to put on more. Now, it doesn't mean that it won't find support earlier. It's not going to go straight there, right? Most likely it's not going to go straight there. So be prepared. You may get some sort of buying pattern or double bottom or something in this area here. Be prepared for it. I'm sure we'll spot it in one of these streams that I do over the next week or so, because that's how long it will take to develop such a thing. But in general, if you just want to have like a general plan, yeah, I think that would make sense. Wait till 4K, see if you can get confirmation there. Perhaps you can get like a mini double bottom or something, and that would be a good reason to add some more if you want to add back in. All right, so you're sort of playing like a cross between inventory and swing trading. Nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand the risk. So good question. Okay, Gotham, greetings from, yes, the Bay Area. And then thanks again for the coins. We're finally getting some much, right. Oh, rain. Oh, cool. Okay. It always rains in New Jersey. We take rain for granted here. All right, so DOCU, let's take a look. DOCU. All right, DOCU. All right, and by the way, for people that may be new, I forgot to mention, if you want to mention where you're from, like what country or what from city, that's always a fun fact. Okay, so here's Docusign. Let's look back a bit here. What's been going on? Now, bigger picture, let's just look at that bigger picture. General trend, what do I see? Higher lows and higher highs. This is your most recent higher high, all right? And it's sort of working its way back a bit, right? So general trend is bullish. Midterm, I would say you're spending more time consolidating, right? We have a range back. This area right here is a range. It broke out of that range and found a new range. Okay, so your midterm and your short term, I would say, are more range bound. Now, within that range, where are we? So you have an old resistance up in here, and as you can see, price is sort of reacting to that, right? It's acting as a support, which can be anticipated. All right, fine. Now, Docusign, I don't know what their correlation is to the S&P. Let's go back to that S&P chart. I like to use that as a gauge when it comes to stocks, because even though it may not be highly correlated, when the S&P really gets hammered, typically most stocks feel it, unless it's some garbage penny stock that's being hyped, or if it's some biotech stock that has specific news. Usually most stocks feel it. So I'm gonna guess that Docusign has some sort of correlation, maybe not a high one. Now here's the S&P, right? S&P today produced a bearish pin bar. This market's going to close in 5 minutes. That's a sell signal developing off of an area that's possibly basically like a double top. You can argue lower high type of situation. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to get this major reversal and the market's going to go into a bear market, but over the next few days, I would be anticipating some type of corrective movement, right? And the first support on the S&P is here, kind of like that Ethereum situation, right? 45, 46, almost the same numbers. So 45, 46 on the S&P might be a good place to be looking for action out of Docusign. Again, use like a major index to help you, and I think the S&P is a good one. Even though Docusign's probably on the Nasdaq, the S&P and Nasdaq pretty much move the same, right? So let's compare that to Docusign. So with the S&P kind of getting hesitant there, I would think that, you have this lower high on Docusign. I would be looking to these supports, right? You have a more precise support here at 248. Maybe you want to round that to 249, something like that. So watch for price to revisit this area here, right? That range right there. What is the high part of that range? Let's see, 234. That's a pretty wide range. 230 to 255 is the range of this rectangle that I drew on here. All right, so that's a pretty wide range. So what you want to look for in there, if you can get some sort of bullish reversal in this zone, and the S&P is trying to formulate a support, meaning maybe the S&P doesn't go back to 45. Maybe it finds support at 47 or 46.50 or something like that. But the S&P is trying to give you a bullish reversal. Maybe there's a mini double bottom developing on the S&P, which may take an entire week to develop on something like that. That would be higher probability if you're thinking swing trade on something like this. Because right now, yeah, you have this little higher low situation, but I don't like this relative to what the S&P is doing. And I mean, today's candle, I don't know what is that. It's like a little mini spinning top or whatever that is. And it's right at this little minor resistance. It's like there's just too much, it's just not clear. Okay, so I'd rather see a clearly defined level, a much better level. That's this area here. Maybe you get a failed low, right, off of that 230 area or something like that, where it goes slightly lower, gets people shaken out, right, and then becomes a nice bullish pin bar to go long. That would be much more probable, and I would be expecting some sort of bullish move out of the S&P or Nasdaq at the same time. Okay, so use that as your guide, because otherwise this is a broad high or low on Docusign, which means Docusign is not exactly weak. I think you could get some better support levels in light of where the market is right now. All right, so just something to keep an eye on there. Thank you for asking about Docusign, and thanks again for the coins. Okay, Kai, hey, from Germany. Guten Tag. That's all I could say in German. I don't even know any German bad words, okay? Anyway, let's see. Rev USDT. I know more bad words in Chinese than I do in German. All right, let's see. REV USDT. Okay. Yeah, back when I worked, I worked at Forex.com, and I worked for a Russian Forex broker. So I always had access to native speakers of other languages. So I used to work with the Chinese, a guy from where was he from? Taiwan. And I asked him, to teach me some bad words in Chinese, and he taught me some. Okay, so anyway, let's take a look here. Rev against Tether. So first thing I want to see here is the bigger picture. Now, you know what? So let's do a little interactive thing. I'm going to make sure I'm up to date here on the chat. I want to ask you that are watching here. Let me see. Do I have people watching? Yeah, I still have some people. So from what you've learned, from what I've showed you here, just a few responses from the chat. What do you make of this chart? Okay, when I zoom it out like this, just what are your initial observations? What can you say about this? And I'm going to draw some lines on the chart while you come up with something here. And if you're not sure, hey, just tell me your initial observation. There's no right or wrong, right? Don't be shy. It's the best way to learn. So just what do you think in general when you see something like this? Like before, I was categorizing these things basically. I was looking at the structures and putting them into a category. And typically you get 3 categories, right? You get a bigger picture, you got long-term, mid-term, and short-term. So what are some of your responses? Let's see. I know there's a little bit of a delay here, so I'll wait for that. But as far as this chart goes, bigger picture was bullish, right? It gave most of it back, and since then it's just been consolidating, right? That's what you have here. Relative weakness, Bart says. Okay, well, and a lot of coins, Bart, are in this situation. But like just as far as categorizing these trends, let's see. Gotham says upper middle of the range, approaching resistance, right? Okay, yep, you definitely got that. There's a resistance line there. Range high, good, you guys can see that. Okay, cool. Start to move up, Peter says. Okay, well, I mean, there is some bullish, there is some green going on there. All right, as far as individual candles. But you want to look at the whole picture here. Thomas says, probably has a lot of market hype and particular attention to break big. Okay. Elizabeth says, not really moving compared to BTC or Ethereum. Okay. So good observations, right? What I'm trying to get you to do here is I'm trying to get you to look at this price action right here and compare it to this back here. That's what I'm trying to get you to do. So Kai says relative weakness against Bitcoin, bearish candlesticks, okay? Currently in consolidation, tries to break out. Right, okay, so those are all good answers. I mean, you pretty much, it's not hard to see these things, right? What's hard is to manage the risk when you're in something, because that's when emotion gets in the way. But when we're not in something, it's a lot easier to be objective. Wouldn't you agree? So in this situation, what I see here is range bound. I see consolidation. So yes, like Peter says, it's starting to go up and there's a higher low over here. But when we're inside of a consolidation, trend information doesn't mean as much, okay? Because we have all this range high stuff going on here and we're likely to see failure. On top of that, look at today's candle. And that's where zooming in and really paying attention to the most recent price action, which is basically what I'm doing here is price action analysis. I know a lot of people misunderstand that phrase. I guess maybe because all these fake gurus misuse it. And I use it to mean anything that's related to pure price. So that could be Elliott wave, that could be support and resistance levels, it could be price patterns. Those are all relative to pure price action. I'm not processing price. There's no oscillator on my chart, okay? So when we see this pin bar situation right here off of a range high, all right, and we also know, because we looked at the Bitcoin chart, we saw that it's starting to turn and Bitcoin could possibly break an important support level of 62K, right? So like Kai said, yes, there's relative weakness and we're getting to see some evidence of that with this bearish pin bar developing. You say, well, how is it bearish? It's green. Well, we have a tail at the top. We have 2 tails at the top, okay? And it's coming, those tails have developed off of this resistance line. So you take out these lows, that's a sell signal off of a range high. So even though there's a higher low, it doesn't really mean a whole lot because of the context. Notice context of this situation, right? So I wouldn't be looking for longs here, definitely not for that reason. I would, if you were looking for longs on something like this, you're probably better off waiting for the range low if you can get there. Because here's the thing, even if this thing starts to inch higher, and that's the problem with a lot of these coins, they start to inch higher and they don't pull back. Even though a pullback is like right around the corner, they just don't pull back. And you're like, oh man, I didn't buy it there, and now it's 5 cents higher. Oh, now it's 5 more cents higher, and blah, blah, blah. And what do? You buy into this area right here thinking, oh, okay, it's going to keep going, and you bought the top, right? So that's why you want to, if you're going to play that game, which I don't want to discourage people, there's plenty of opportunity in trying to play those breakouts, but you need to be prepared for when it fails. That's what you need to do. So like that situation with DOT, okay? DOT failed off that high. And it's up to you to adjust when it fails, because that failure that we saw in Polkadot, that's not characteristic of bullish momentum, right? Bullish momentum should keep producing green candles. And if a red candle develops, the next candle after that red candle should be green, because sometimes you get those little fake out candles. Okay, fine. But if you get a red candle, the low is taken out, you get another red candle, that's not bullish momentum. And when you're playing the breakout, you are 100% dependent on bullish momentum to follow through. All right, so that's what I don't like about this thing. You have a lot of obstacles in front of you. And, so I would do nothing with this, okay? If you're in it, hopefully you're in from a good price. Hopefully you've locked in some profit and you want to see if this thing can work its way higher. Maybe some news comes out and they start to spike it or whatever. But if you have any opportunity to get back into this area here, that's a place to sell, not to buy, okay? The place to buy would be this area here, all right? That's your range low. And if that breaks for whatever reason, then you're looking at this area here, which, it's hard to believe that these things will get back there, but you'll be surprised, okay? When we're out of alt season and these things they get out of favor, what you will see is money flow out of the whole sector. And I think Kai brought this up. Someone brought this up, the total 3. I like to look at this chart. Total 3 looks just like Bitcoin, okay? It looks like Bitcoin and Ethereum combined. I think this is a good chart. Like I always talk about, I don't like to add extra layers of complexity. But a chart like this is, I think it's a good sign for the entire sector. It's a good gauge. It's like looking at the S&P and NASDAQ together for the whole sector. And when this thing starts breaking those support levels on this thing, because again, you're not going to sit here and try to trade these things, but when this thing breaks supports, then that means money is flowing out. And that's where we're probably going to spot the conclusion of the current altcoin season, and you'll notice on your individual altcoins in that situation they're going to be breaking supports, and that is what you don't want to see if you're long, because something that is strong doesn't break supports, it holds them, all right? Or maybe it slightly breaks and then it turns right around, and which is basically the same as holding. Understand? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Thank you for asking about that. Let me see what else I got here. I'm just going through the chat. Okay, I just have to go back here. Just be patient with me. Okay, so let's go. So it's DOCU, Rev. Man, I'm so behind. Okay, so hey, David, please review Solana. Sure. Solana. Let's take a look. This is one of the ones that are going to 10x by next month, right? From what the YouTube gurus told me. So, all right, so here's the thing. This looks sort of like that Bitcoin situation. You have a peak has been established, right? Which is this price right here. What is that? 259.90. So basically 260. A peak has been established. Now, this structure is clearly bullish. There's nothing but higher lows and higher highs. Now, the current situation, we have a higher low right here. And that makes sense. It's an old resistance, right, which is acting as a new support, at least for now. You can see some tails off of this area. Now, you can even argue that there is a buy signal. It took out this, see this red candle that I'm pointing to right here? That high is 239, right? I'll draw a little box on it. This high was 239. It was taken out, which means there's a buy signal in play, but it's not following through because we're getting red candles here. Okay, so as far as a swing trade goes, I wouldn't do, there's nothing to do with this thing right now. I would be watching for a test of this support again, which is that the low there is 229. So you can round that to 230, this area right there, low 230s, perhaps high 220s. And you want to see a bullish reversal develop in there. Now, I know this is a big hype coin because, again, I see a lot of videos about this one that claim that you're going to be a bazillionaire by in a couple of months if you just buy and stake in this thing or whatever it is that they do with this thing. So you have to beware of that. Now, if this thing gets into this support area and gives you a buy signal, it's worth a try for a swing trade. Why? Because the structure is so bullish. And some of these things I've noticed in recent time have started to go off and move on their own. And that's probably a result of all the marketing, the heavy marketing that's involved. Because, a couple of people in here pointed out, and I watched a video about the same thing that confirmed my suspicion that many of these gurus or these fin tubers are being paid by these marketers to push these things. Right? So if you get a big crowd together and you get them to all buy it, you're going to get a chart that looks like this, right? And that's what you do. So that's another way to get rich, right? Just get everyone to buy this thing. You buy it first, and then you have a big following, and then you tell them all to buy it. And once they all pile in, you sell it to them. So if it breaks that support, then I'd be looking at these, right? Looking at this support. But something like this structure really should not, if it's going to stay intact, it should not clear this support here. It should not clear it. Maybe it tests it, 181. Maybe it tests the support, okay? You have another support in this area here. So those are what define the structure. Those are higher lows. If those supports are broken over the next couple of months, I would step away from this thing, because that would also mean most likely that money's coming out of the whole sector, I would guess. And maybe this coin has some value in the future or something, but when it starts breaking those supports, I think it's best to step aside and wait for the structure to change back. Maybe you'll get a broad consolidation in something like this. So you want to be following this thing most carefully, or give it the most attention when it's testing those lows, if it gets back there. Now, can this thing consolidate, give you a tight consolidation, which is possible, and break higher? Yes, that can happen too. So if you want to play that game, right, maybe it fools around this area and then you get a break that looks like this because, like I said, someone hypes it, whatever, and you get a break like that. If you want to play that game, that's up to you. Your risk will have to be defined by this low of 229. So you're going to be taking a larger amount of risk. You don't have much of a choice. And if it goes wrong, meaning it pops, it breaks, and then you start getting bearish pin bars up in here, make sure you're prepared to adjust. Okay, so look, there's nothing wrong. This game is about risk, and there's nothing wrong with being aggressive in something that's generally strong. Nothing wrong with it. Just be prepared for when it doesn't follow through. All right, I want to prepare you for both sides. I don't want to sit here and try to plant some kind of seed of opinion in your mind. I don't want to do that, because you really shouldn't have an opinion. You should just be like, okay, look, it can either do this or do that. And here's how I'm going to prepare for those scenarios, whichever one you want to participate in. Maybe you don't want to participate at all. That's also a choice. Okay? So I hope that helps. Let me see. So that's Solana. All right, Elizabeth Finn, I'd buy at 39.41. There was confirmation of a trend reversal. Okay, talking about Ethereum. So Peter, want to check out Cardano? Sure, let's check out another big hype coin. Let's take a look. Cardano. Let's take a look. Let's see what kind of nonsense is going on in Cardano. Because again, Cardano was supposed to 50x, then it was supposed to 10x, and all this other stuff. All right, all my ranting aside, let's just take a look at the bigger picture here, right? I mean, higher lows, higher highs, it's still intact. Every time, though, that this thing, look at these price spikes. You notice this? Look at these price spikes. So I suspect that they're trying to push this thing, right? That's hype right there. And it keeps failing. Shouldn't do that. When is this thing going to 50x like they keep saying? They're going to build games on the Cardano blockchain and all other kinds of nonsense. Well, that's causing people to buy. And someone's selling it to them. Because why would anyone sell this thing if it's so good, right? This thing should be up in here. So that's a concern. So yeah, the high, this is a higher low that's developing. So in this type of situation, because it's acting that way, you don't want to, I think buying a breakout on here is a really bad idea because it keeps failing. Maybe at one of these points, the breakout will go, but your more conservative thing to do would be to wait for the test of the range low. All right, that area right there, and that's going to coincide with, what is that, $1.90 area? It's touched there a few times, as you can see, just looking back in here. It doesn't touch there very often, right? It takes a few weeks to get there, as you can see, but that's the area that you should be most interested in, and look for a reversal there if you want to take a reasonable risk. Right now, this price action sucks. That shouldn't look like that, right? That's a bearish pin bar. You're in the middle of this range, okay? Anything can happen here, and this thing is heavily hyped. So I would wait. If you want to get involved, wait for this area here. See if you can get some type of reversal there, and you should be able to risk, I think a reasonable risk for Cardano is maybe between 30 and 50 cents. You probably don't have to risk more than that for this type of thing, because if it can't maintain that, then that means this thing is getting hammered. Okay, that means this thing is just gonna, you know, start to unload. They're gonna unload their coins, and you're gonna see some ridiculously low prices, because this thing should not be acting like this, especially in light of how all these other coins have gone nuts in recent time. Again, these things are a product of hype. All right, so just something to keep in mind. I hope that helps. All right, everyone, please. Oh, I appreciate that, Gotham. Thank you. Anyone, have people been pressing? I got a couple of likes. I guess they can help. But, you know, Gotham, my YouTube algorithm situation, I'm not doing the right things to utilize the YouTube algorithm, but I've been doing my homework, so I'll be improving on that. So thank you, though. Thank you. Hey, Jesse from Poughkeepsie. Okay, he wants to see the S&P and the dollar. Sure, he wants context. No problem. Like I said, I used to cover these automatically, but if you want to see them, you just ask. So he asked. All right, let's take a look. So S&P, like I mentioned briefly before, there's that bearish pin bar. This market is closed now. So the support, I said 4,500. I mean, this market is generally strong, thanks to all the you know, thanks Fed Chairman for all the free money. So right now with the S&P, I would be looking for a pullback to here. Look, there's a higher low in place that we have. This is a higher low, but this location is just the general, this entire location, this entire area. I'm just going to highlight this here. This is just a lot of, I think it's a lot of hot air. All right. Yes, that's an opinion, but it's very hard for me to take trades or have any belief that there's more bullish potential when there's no pullback, right? This back here, this price action back here that led to the higher low in early October, at least there was some sort of bearish structure, even though it was only a few weeks old, right? I mean, this entire range right here, that's a bearish structure. I'm much more inclined to do something with this, looking for that double bottom, than getting involved when there's nothing like that up here. Right? This thing has yet to pull back. That's the problem that I have with this. This is not a pullback structure. So this thing may inch its way higher, maybe, you know, as the week unfolds, maybe we make the higher high, but I think the risk is very high. All right. So at the same time, I'm not going to short this because it's not, this is not a structure to short. Not now. If you're going to ever get involved in shorts, for one, they're going to have to be temporary because the bigger picture is bullish and you're going counter trend. But you want to see at least some kind of series of lower highs, at least. We don't even have that. We have a potential lower high, but it's mini. It's mini relative to that first initial move. That initial move, this little sell-off here, thanks to the CPI report, whatever, that's hardly anything right there. That's really hardly, I mean, it corrected most of that like in one day. So I would hold off on this thing until there's something more decisive. Okay, now that's the S&P, which means there's general strength in a lot of these stocks. Let's take a look at the dollar index real quick and what's going on there. So the dollar, look at this. This looks like an altcoin. What are they hyping the dollar? Is Fed Chairman, did Chairman Powell start a chat room somewhere and buy the dollar? Just buy it. Buy it. I'm buying it. You buy it too. Look at this thing. That's crazy. Dollar never moves like this. So what that tells me, let's take a look at a weekly chart, because the dollar is not really something. Dollar is like a long-term thing, and it's very important. Look at this thing on the long term. Look at this. Let me just kind of put this into perspective. So the dollar is rising, and what that tells me, we broke out, and there's no fake out here. These are strong close. We had a strong weekly close. The new candle has made a high. Yes, we're going into resistance on the dollar. There's some resistance here, okay? But the recent structure, all this higher low, we made the higher high. So we have to see how this behaves. But what this means as far as the bigger picture goes is you have to ask yourself, who trades the dollar? Institutions, banks, hedge funds, governments. They're the ones that move dollars, right? So if the dollar is rising, that means they're probably pricing in rate hikes. So when the actual rate hikes, the interest rate hikes, when they actually come out, you're not going to see any kind of dramatic move in the dollar, because the dramatic move is happening now, before the rate hike. It's buy the rumor, sell the news. That's the nature of a discounting mechanism. So if the smart money knows that these rate hikes are coming, the dollar is reflecting it now. That's why I'm not so excited about the stock market, because what will happen is you won't see it the next day. But when they start raising interest rates, all these companies are going to start reporting less than their reports, their revenues, all that stuff. They're going to shrink. The profit margins, they're going to shrink. And then they're going to start lowering their guidance, and then you're going to see the major pullback in the stock market, where it's persistent and pronounced for like months or something like that. But we're not there yet, so we can't sit there and start shorting everything now. It's too early. But these are the early signs, right? This is dollars rising now, so that's a sign of interest rates. That's a reflection. Let's take a look at the bond market real quick, because I mean, the bond market is where it's all about interest rates, okay? So this is where it all starts. ZN1, this is the 10-year note on the bonds. This is the weekly chart, okay? No, I never see any fake gurus talk about this. They're all too busy with their altcoins. You're going to be a millionaire by next week. Okay, pay attention to the bonds. So lower high established, all right, as the dollar broke out, and this is what they should be doing. Look at this bond price situation. It's about to break that support, all right, on the bonds. So what does that mean? When bond prices go lower, interest rates rise. It's an inverse relationship, and that's the way that looks. We have a lower high. I've been talking about this for weeks and weeks and weeks. No one pays attention to it, and no one cares. Bonds are boring, I understand, but they're going to basically stop the party when this thing breaks, right? And it's going to take some time, like I said, because these things, the effects move slowly, but it's a sign of what is to come, right? You have to keep that in mind. All right, so that's bigger picture, like macroeconomic view type stuff. Very important for stocks, especially. All right, so you know, I think those signs are good for investors that are looking to invest in stocks, because it means lower prices are on the horizon, not higher prices, unless something changes here. But as long as that dollar keeps going higher and higher and higher, we're likely to see lower prices. And when you look at these charts like the S&P, like I showed you, at ridiculous highs, there's a lot of room to pull back, isn't there? Even just a normal pullback, right? Not even a major one, just a normal, healthy, hey, we pulled back, 15, 20%. That's like not even a big deal. And we haven't even done that. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, Jesse. Thank you for asking. Schwartz, I was worried, Schwartz. I thought you weren't going to come here today, because I know you're a busy man. International men of mystery are usually very busy, but he always makes the time to come to my stream. It's good to see you, Schwartz. From Hungary? Oh, okay. See, he's always in a different secret international location. Heavy week, lots of fake outs and fake gurus, quick to call them breakouts. Right, well, you know how that goes. So thanks for stopping by. It's always good to see Schwartz. Okay, Mr. Plow. Okay, so I covered that. James, pound Aussie for a long. Thanks. Okay, no problem. I appreciate that. Oh, you watch me on FX Empire. Oh, well, that's cool. I didn't think anyone watched me on there. Sometimes I'm like, why do I even make these videos? Okay, cool, thanks. So let's take a look. Pound AUD. That's why I don't make lots of videos for them, because I'm like, man, no one watches me on here. But I like the, the guy that I communicate with over there. He's a good guy, and I like to I don't mind making content for them. So let's take a look here. Pound Aussie. Now, as you know, I'm not a big fan of cross pairs. I prefer something stable like the dollar on the other side. But hey, it's okay. Let's take a look at this chart here and let's see what it says. So general trend has been strong, right? Long term. Mid-term, you see this corrective structure. Okay, fine. And now short term, you have this thing going on over here. So you have a lower high established, right? Double top situation. You have a support that was established back here. As you can see, price reacted significantly off that support, and you're trying to get another reaction there now. Now, this is the pound against the Aussie, right? So the pound has recently got hammered. And now this is going to be relative to the Aussie. So I don't know what to tell you. I've been bearish on the pound. I mean, I understand why the pound is going lower. And I would expect that this to somewhat follow that situation, unless, of course, the Aussie can move faster, lower than this thing will reverse. So I don't want to confuse you with all that. Just take a look at the support level here. That level would be 81.29 is the low. So you're saying for a long, okay, if you want to go that route, for one, you don't have the candle there yet. You could, if you want to use this candle as your point of reference, the high needs to be taken out in the next candle, which is 83.16. So maybe you want to round that to like 83.20 or something like that, right? Give it a little room, maybe 83.30 or something, right? And your risk is going to be defined. You have 2 points. You can use the candle low, which is 182.10, or the structural low, which is 81.26. Obviously, the structural low is going to be a larger loss. Okay, if you take that loss, what you'd be anticipating here is that support to hold, but it's tricky because you do have the lower high. So what you're basically betting on is a higher low to develop, and you're looking for a change in structure. It's an aggressive trade. The long would be aggressive. It's fine if you're willing to take that risk. If you want to be in a more conservative move, then what you need to do is wait until the higher low establishes itself, which obviously it tried. Okay, it tried, and then it just sort of gave it back. But let this break out, let it break the resistance, then look for the next higher low. Because the resistance break is a piece of evidence. The resistance break is something that should not happen if this bearish structure is going to stay intact. Okay, does that make sense? So that's the two ways you can go about that. Because the broader bullish structure is bullish, and this is just correcting it. So at this point, it makes sense for this thing to find a reversal. It's just not confirmed. So if you want to take that chance before it confirms, okay, just realize that your chances of getting stopped out are greater in that situation, or for it not following through are still greater. If you want to wait for the breakout, or maybe what you do is you buy half of your position, and if it works out and you're in on that breakout, you buy the second half after it breaks out and pulls back, and now you kind of get the best of both worlds. But of course, that's going to require a lot of patience and a lot of observation. All right, so I hope that answers your question, but it's not a bad idea. It's just aggressive. All right, so it's important to categorize it like that. Thanks for asking, James from London. Okay, Steve from Germany. What would you consider to be confirmation for wave 5 for Bitcoin? All right, let's go back to Bitcoin here. Wave 5 confirmation. Well, here's the thing. All right, and when it comes to the wave counts, I'm going to go back to a weekly chart. All right, now this is tricky, because this movement, this rally that we've seen up until this point could be considered the wave 5. Once it broke the 64K, I was thinking of that as confirmation. But the thing is, it hasn't broken clearly and followed through. It's hesitating. Not only that, but we have see this movement here, right? Basically, it's like a three-legged structure, And three-legged structures are typically corrective waves, which means that this is likely, it's still possibly part of the broad wave 4. Elliott wave is very tricky that way. So to answer your question, at this point, what I would like to see to confirm wave 5 is we need to close strongly above where we need to see this. Like, we need to see that. And then I could say, all right, we've cleared that wave 4 fake out area, and most likely at that point, we're in the wave 5. And if that's the case, then that would be what? You'd still be in the wave 3 of 5 in that case. And that, for all these big mouths that are talking about 100,000, that's probably what would lead to something like that, okay? Because if we're in the wave 3 of the 5, wave 3s are usually, as you know, they're never the shortest wave, and they're usually very large and aggressive waves, right? But we can't say that that's the case yet, especially if this thing fails and goes back inside the range, okay? And if it touches the top of this area here, if price goes back into this vicinity, that would confirm that we're in the wave 4, because wave 1 should not wave 4, if this is a wave 4 of a 5 for whatever reason, it should not overlap wave 1. So that would confirm for me that we're in a broad wave 4 and we're not in the 5 yet. So I hope that answers your question. Again, Elliott wave is something that's very subjective, and it requires a very open mind, and you have to always be willing to adjust. You don't want to get opinionated by it, okay? You don't want to get stuck in an opinion, because that's one of the drawbacks to Elliott wave, is it can opinionate you, and you think, oh no, but we have to be in a wave 5. And meanwhile, you know, it's a broad consolidation. It's not an impulse wave on the bigger picture. Okay, so I hope that helps. Okay, hey Bart, good to see you. Kai, looking bearish? Sure. And maybe that has something to do with the dollar. I don't know. All right, CHR. All right, let's take a look. Is that a coin or is that a stock? I'm guessing that's a stock. Let's see. CHR. Let me know if it's a coin or if it's a stock. I don't want to spend the wrong time here on the wrong thing. So Bart, is this the right chart? I'm looking at CHR, the stock. How much is this thing? $4.19. Okay, I'm guessing this is the correct symbol. So in this situation here, I mean, you have a series of higher low supports, right? And you've had some nice reactions off of them. At this point, where's your resistance on this thing, right? You have resistance around here somewhere. So, oh, it's a coin. Okay, good. See, that's what I was watching for. Yeah, when you put the coin, make sure you put USD. Otherwise, I would have spent 3 hours on this wrong chart. Okay, okay, that's much better. All right, CHR, the coin. Let's take a look. So I'm guessing we got hype here, because look at this nonsense, right? Hype. So as far as now, okay, getting pin bars up in here. So people are selling, all right, no problem. Where are the support levels? Well, you have one here, all right, and you have one here in this area right here. Those are your support levels right there. So on something like CHR, what you want to do is see if price can consolidate its way back to that first support, which is around 83.5 cents, something like that. You know, and if it breaks that, you're looking for here. That's it. Very simple. So you want to see a failed low or double bottom develop in this area. That will give you your setup for a swing trade, and you should be able to define risk at that point. I hope that helps clarify the picture for you, because right now you'd be buying into a potential top. Sure, it may give you a very tight consolidation and go higher, but as you know, the risk is very high in these situations, especially with Bitcoin starting to turn. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see these things get cut in half, especially if it's a hype coin. Okay, so let me see here. All right, I have to, what time is it? Yeah, I got to wrap this up. I only have about another minute or so. I'm sorry, I have to cut this a little earlier than I usually do, because I have to. So I'm sorry about that. If I missed your question, I apologize. And I will just come back next time, because I know I see a lot of chat here and I haven't even gotten to it yet. Mr. Banian, hey, good to see you. Alex, good to see you. Thomas, aloha from Sun Valley, Idaho. Oh, hey, Thomas, good to see you again. Okay. I know you and Elizabeth over there in Idaho. I got my Idaho people. All right, Thomas, could you please go over IDRV and IXIC? Okay, no problem. And Winterfresh, what do you think about AAV? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I just want to read the chats real quick. I like you being so I would, in a world where people are getting so flashy. Well, you know, I don't know what to say about that, but that's what drives attention, Mr. Bainey. And like Instagram is a great example. Everyone's got a Lamborghini, right? If you don't have a Lamborghini, you're just poor. And then they shame you for it. I saw one guy shaming people for not donating one Ethereum because it's only one. If you can't give me one Ethereum, you're poor. That's what he was saying. Anyway, that's just the way, the environment that we're in. Okay, inflation. I'm just going through this real quick. Let me see. If you can please take a look at dollar. Okay, I talked about that. Silver and gold. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Gotham, I just draw my granola when the 2 million. Yeah. All right, Farhat. Hey, good to see you. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to be able to answer all those questions. I apologize. Let me just get through a couple more, and then I'm going to wrap it up. So again, I appreciate all the people that stuck it out with me here. All right, so let me do, Thomas, I'm going to do IDRV. And IXIC, I'm going to get to some more questions here, so I'm only going to do one. IDRV. Again, I'm sorry that I'm a little bit behind today. I got to fix my stupid computer. Okay, IDRV. So I guess, is this right? IDRV, is that a stock? Let me just check something here. IDRV, is there a coin? No, there's no coin. Okay, so this is some kind of ETF. Self-driving EV tech ETF. Oh, I didn't know they had one. All right, look at this. So I'm guessing Tesla is going to be involved in all that. Man, what a chart, right? Look at that. Okay, so clearly, look at this. This breakout looks very similar to the nonsense that we've seen in the NASDAQ in recent weeks. So I would not touch this thing here, right? I know all the excitement, and they're all going to do this and blah, blah, blah. I realize. But you want to wait for a support level. When it comes to like these ETF things, right, it's the same thing. They find support and resistance levels the same way. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a reflection of Tesla and just, you know, a Tesla alone. Just like Apple is like an almost the exact reflection of the NASDAQ. So I'd be looking for this level right here. $49.55, basically $50. How much is this thing right now? $55. So that's a $5 pullback on something like this. Yeah, I know it's a pretty decent pullback, but that's where your reward risk makes the most sense. Right now, this is up in like the middle of nowhere. You're at these ridiculous highs, possible lower high developing, so I wouldn't touch it now. If you're long, great place to get out of some, take some profit, but if you're looking to get long, I would say that $50 area. Nice whole number. You're looking for price action confirmation in the area there. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And if this thing breaks, meaning it breaks 50, never gives you confirmation, and breaks below this low, what is that, 47, then you want to step aside. I would also be guessing that the stock market will be having problems if this thing breaks such a support. And you're going to want to wait for the thing to stabilize before doing anything. All right, this might be a good ETF to invest in also when you get some attractive prices. All right, so thanks for asking. Okay, so Winter, AAVE, USDT for a swing trade. Let me take a look real quick. AAVE. I'm glad people are getting value out of these streams. You know, that's the whole idea. I want people to come away with confidence and just perspective that maybe they didn't have going into this, right? That's the whole idea. So what I see here on this AAV, I think we've talked about this one before. I remember the symbol. You're looking at like a giant range, right? And I'm just highlighting the levels of the range. And look where we are right now. So you have a possible lower high right here. When you're in a range like this, a consolidation, and you're in the middle of it, any type of trend tools that we use, especially oscillators, will be useless in this situation because this is not a trend. You're in the midpoint of a consolidation, which is the most random point. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You have these little mini lower highs, which again, they're not going to carry as much weight because this is not a trend. So you want to find this little mini range low. That's one possibility. And you're keeping an eye out for that range high. I don't know if this is a bad tick or if that's for real. I don't know what that long tail is right there. But if that's real, that just emphasizes that there are a lot of people selling in this area, okay? Which means someone knows something, obviously, and they hyped a lot of people that got caught in this thing, and now they're stuck in it, if that's real. Sometimes you get a bad tick. But as of right now, I wouldn't do anything with this thing, okay? We have the little mini lower high. There's obviously some weakness ahead. Can't call that a trend, though. I would be watching for the range low. The range low is 259, so basically 260, okay? 260 is your range low. This thing's at 303, so that's a nice little pullback that you can get on this thing. And that would be just a normal, healthy range low support area. You maybe this area here, what is that, 270? So that entire range, okay, that's where you're looking for some sort of reversal. That's where your probability is going to be most favorable. Does that make sense? You want to see the failed low, the higher low. Bullish pin bar develop there, okay? Something to tell you that this support is going to hold. Now again, just keep an eye. Like I said, a lot of these have been breaking away from Bitcoin and doing their own thing. But as we know, Bitcoin is red right now, and these things are all red. What a surprise. So to keep an eye on Bitcoin and Ethereum, because if they start breaking serious levels, right? The first one will be 62K for Bitcoin, 57K is the next one. If 57K breaks, then I would be expecting these things to be breaking these supports, right? So you have to keep that in mind. If Bitcoin holds that 57K and starts to reverse, I would anticipate similar price action in these coins. All right, so I hope you found that helpful. Let me just jump over. I see a gold question. I want to answer the gold question. That's normally a market that I cover. All right, I'm going to run through that and I'm going to wrap this up, okay? So gold. I talked about the dollar. Now, but the reason why I want to talk about gold is because gold has been acting unusual relative to the dollar. Usually these are inverse, okay? Now dollar vertical. We saw dollar is like altcoin vertical, right? Gold has also been vertical, which is unusual. Shouldn't be doing that. So what's the story here? Well, you know, gold is driven not just by the dollar. There are other variables. And it had this like extension here, right? Okay, today's candle on gold, you have this red doji situation or spinning top, whatever you want to call that. And it's coming off, if you notice. Where is it developing? This old support, it's now acting as a potential resistance. So I would not be buying gold here. I think, especially in light of that dollar that's persistent, it's eventually going to catch up to gold. So I don't like these levels, right? I do believe that gold is, in the face of inflation, gold obviously should be a bullish asset. I understand all that kind of stuff. But if the Fed starts raising rates, I don't know where gold thinks it's going. But it's not going to be going to 5,000 or 2,000 or anything anytime soon if the Fed steps in, right? So I think buying here is extremely risky and highly vulnerable. If anything, all right, if we're just going to play the chart, all economic opinions aside, if we're going to look at the chart, then your first support on gold is this old resistance, which I had talked about for a while, 1832 area, okay? That's going to be the new support that broke. Right, the resistance broke, so I'd be anticipating bullish price action here. If you want to take a swing trade for gold, especially if you're dealing with the CFD, that would be the better price to be doing it. Now, it's possible that gold gives you a higher low somewhere in here somewhere, but that's going to be more of like a 50-50 probability. I think your probability is slightly higher. We'll call it 60-40. You know, in this area here. I can't pinpoint a precise probability, so I just like to assign it, you know, 50-50 is random, okay? 51-49 is slightly better than random, and if you get something like a 60-40, then chances are more skewed toward less random, right? More of a chance going the way we think. So, but not a whole, it's not like I'm saying 90-10, right? Or 80-20, because I don't know where they come up with those numbers with these people. Oh, 80% chance Bitcoin's going to do this. I don't know if they come up with these numbers. They make them up because there's no way to mathematically, I don't know how they would arrive at such a probability. And when I watch some videos about where they make those claims, they never explain how they arrive mathematically. They just say, well, if you look back here and you look at this and you look at these numbers, well, that happens 70% of the time. And so this time it's going to be 30%, and like, where do they come up with this? Anyway, all right. So I'm not going to, I'll rant on that all day. So let me stop now. All right. So you get the idea with gold. Okay. That's what I'd be looking for. If gold breaks lower, so let's say you get the buy signal here and you go for it and it breaks lower, then step away. I would be expecting the dollar to be going vertical in such a situation. I'd be expecting it, to continue the way it's looking now if gold just gives all of this back. So just something to keep in mind. Now, if you own gold, this is a great place to unload paper gold, unload some of it. If you have physical, you're not going to, physical gold is not something that you really trade. You just hold on to it, right? But if you have the opportunity or you have the means to get out of some of it, hey, I never think it's a bad idea to lock in something, just take some profits, whether it's physical or paper, at such levels when things are ridiculous like this, right? When you get this vertical type move, you can sell a little, why not? Because you can probably buy it back when it gets back into the midpoint of that range there. All right, so just something to keep in mind. But of course, that's a lot easier to do with paper gold, like CFD or gold futures or whatever. All right, or gold stocks even. Let's just take a look real quick. What's like wheat and precious metals doing? Which is another way to be exposed to gold. I mean, look at that. This would certainly be a good place to take something off the table. When gold does something like that, you have to realize too, all the hype people are gonna come out. Gold's going to 5,000, and gold there's no gold in Fort Knox, and we're gonna have hyperinflation, and we're gonna be wheeling dollars around in wheelbarrows, and a loaf of bread is gonna be $1,000. You're gonna hear all that kind of stuff. Okay, it's nonsense. So just something to keep in mind. Please don't pay any attention to that. Watch your levels, and those are the levels. And gold is starting to hesitate a bit. As long as the dollar keeps going the way it's going, I don't see how gold can continue this, because at some point that relationship of stronger dollar, weaker gold has to come back into play. All right. Again, other variables drive gold. Use the levels as your guide when the relationship when the relationship becomes irrational and breaks away from logic. There are certain relationships in the market that work on logic, like stronger dollar, weaker whatever's against the dollar. Okay, but there are times when things just get completely irrational, and you just have to accept it. All right, so I'm going to leave you with that. Again, I apologize if I missed your question. I sincerely apologize. I have to wrap this up now. I'll be back. I'll stream again on Thursday. Please come back and ask your question again, and I'll be happy to answer it, okay? So let me just see if there's anything I can answer without a chart here. Relative weak. Okay, Kai, the amount of fake outs and lack of follow-through is noteworthy. This market is not as bullish as it seems outside of some of the top coins, meme coins, right, which is purely, as you know, driven by marketing teams, okay? Bobby Junk. Why does 51K more weight than 53K? Well, 51K and 53K are basically the same area. I would, there's no precision here. So I would say that whole zone, you can even say 50K to 53K. That's the general support area. It's 57K that has more weight because there's a level there. Okay. Okay, let's see. Schwartz must be a Michelin expector. Michelin expector? Okay. Okay. I'm just getting through the chat. Okay, no problem. All right, so I ran through gold. Okay, putting in a pitch for as you work on your platforms. Elizabeth, I appreciate that. As far as like a chat community and all that stuff, I've done a lot of homework on that, and I agree. Like it's a great way to share ideas, especially trade signals and all that other stuff. I have some plans that I'm working on, but I can't really say anything at the moment because I'm just not there yet. But I appreciate the volunteer. I'll definitely keep that in mind. Okay, Bart, I appreciate that too. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you. I could definitely use help on things. Gotham, hey, not only do we learn stuff, we're also that's the whole idea. I'm glad I do. All that stand-up that I've done years ago has finally paid off. I can entertain people. I'm serious. I actually used to do stand-up. Okay, Kai, I certainly will stock up on food. Getting okay. All right. Cool. All right. Farhat. So again, I apologize if I missed your question. I know I missed a few here. I'm going to wrap this up. Join me for Thursday. If you want to know more about Greenbridge and all that stuff, you can click on the link where it says show more, and we have the signal room and all that other stuff. So Please check that out. You can also check out my ebook if you want to learn the techniques that I use to arrive at this analysis and basically develop context through price action. Other than that, wherever you are in the world, please enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your evening. And thank you very, very much